On a frigid evening in 2006, a graduate student from Harvard Design School ventured across campus to hear a lecture by global health pioneer Dr. Paul Farmer. Farmer and Partners in Health, the nonprofit organization that he famously co-founded, bring healthcare to some of the poorest people in the world, starting initially in Haiti and now working in over a dozen countries, with many more organizations employing its proven model globally. In his lecture, Farmer spoke of building clinics and hospitals, but also schools, housing, and even roads. The mere mention of these buildings piqued the design student's interest. Following the talk, wearing his dad's paint-splattered, raggedy old sweatshirt, one of his rituals for design's all too frequent sleepless nights, like the kind that he was about to encounter when he returned to the studio, the design student sheepishly approached Farmer. He told him simply he wanted to work for the design organizations that Partners in Health was employing. To the student's surprise, Farmer told him that he had literally never worked with an architect or a designer. He joked that he had sketched the organization's last clinic on the back of a napkin. Here was a foremost health leader who claimed to have never worked with an architect or designer. That design student, named Michael Murphy, returned to his studio desk that night both starstruck by Farmer and in shock at the notion that his chosen field of design had contributed so little to the work of an organization like Partners in Health. Michael and Dr. Farmer traded emails, and when Farmer invited him to Rwanda, where Partners in Health was expanding its work, Michael jumped at the opportunity. I met Michael Murphy in 2007, shortly after he started interacting with Farmer. When Michael told me that he was headed to Rwanda to design a hospital for Partners in Health, at Farmer's invitation, I thought to myself, and I potentially even told him, I thought that was a terrible idea. What in the world does this Harvard kid know about designing a hospital in Rwanda? You know, I had reason to worry. Countries in the so-called developing world are littered with buildings and other infrastructure left behind by naive, even if well-intentioned designers, of the kind that I pegged Michael to be. And yet, I saw some of myself in Michael. I too had gone to design school wanting to make the world a better place. And the same could be said of virtually every classmate that I ever had. On the other hand, here was Dr. Farmer, a brilliant social sector leader, and not just that, but one heavily reliant on physical space, like clinics and hospitals, whose work had never benefited from professional design services. How was this possible? The social sector is filled with leaders just like Dr. Paul Farmer, even if they had some instinct that design could advance their work. How could they access it? And more importantly, who would pay for it? While we routinely celebrate the flashy new corporate headquarters of companies, there is no comparable celebration in the social sector. I've literally heard social sector leaders worry aloud that donations and funding might dry up if, through some miracle, they got a well-designed space suited to their needs. The latter scenario might sound a little far-fetched, but that's how a great many people view design, as a luxury, and not just in the social sector. It affects all of us. There is, however, one place where design is increasingly valued: in business. Yet the principles of design that are increasingly foundational to business, such as creativity and experimentation, have yet to find their way into the social sector. As the example of Dr. Farmer and Partners in Health illustrates, the benefits of design are rarely experienced in the social sector. Moreover, the values of beauty, aesthetics, and human-centeredness as means to create justice have yet to influence the social sector at scale. Put another way, design has yet to become a keystone in solving the world's most pressing challenges that so many of us, I know, care about. But I believe its time has come. This, of course, will not be the first time that design has been looked to as a tool for social change. In the early 1900s, design for the public good was part of the German Bauhaus and modernist movements. Bauhaus founder Walter Gropius saw design as, quote, necessary for everyone in a civilized society. So while it is not the first time that we have turned to design to address social issues, it is unique for three significant reasons. First and foremost, we have potent examples, like Partners in Health, of those rare social sector organizations that are leveraging the power of design. Second, we have not only this precedent of companies that are, quote, design-led, but we also have a whole cohort of formally trained private sector leaders and entrepreneurs. Beyond their own treasure, they command huge companies and networks with tremendous power of their own. I call them the design vanguard. And third, we have a new generation of nonprofit design agencies and social enterprises that were specifically created to work across sector, driven not just by profit and efficiency, but by purpose and impact. Where there was once a tyranny of low expectations for social impact design, these nonprofit design agencies offer proof of concept for how design, the social sector, and investment can intersect. The first was co-founded by that design student that I mentioned earlier, Michael Murphy, who I couldn't have underestimated more. Barely a decade after his chance encounter with Dr. Farmer, Mass Design Group, as the organization that Michael co-founded came to be called, is on the cutting edge of architecture globally. This is the hospital that Michael and his remarkable colleagues designed and constructed with Partners in Health in rural Rwanda. They did so utilizing local labor and local materials, while not repeating many of the mistakes that we see in Western hospital buildings. Rather than a traditional hospital layout centered around corridors where communicable diseases like tuberculosis spread, covered outdoor corridors and natural airflow ensure otherwise. Here on this hilltop that was once a contested site during Rwanda's civil war stands what I believe is one of the most significant buildings of our time, the Butaro Hospital. And it's not just buildings, but it's also products that are being designed specifically to meet the needs of the poor. Social enterprises like Kickstart International, which works in countries across Africa, Proximity Design in Myanmar, as well as US-based DREV, are bringing life-changing products, ranging from innovative irrigation pumps for subsistence farmers, to solar lanterns for the urban and rural poor, to prosthetics, to huge regions of the world, as far-flung as Kenya, China, and India. Beyond physical buildings and products, however, IDEO.org, the nonprofit spin-off of design and innovation giant IDEO, has set its sights on the often less tangible but equally influential area of service design. Just as physical spaces and products are designed, so too are services, from our airport security experience to how you're treated at the Ritz-Carlton. But IDEO.org uses service design to tackle a spectrum of challenges facing the world's poor, from agriculture to financial inclusion to healthcare. Their work spans Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and the US, from Kampala to Kathmandu to Kansas City. Their partners range from the American Refugee Committee to Unilever to the Gates Foundation. These examples of design being deployed are creating new markets, serving diverse populations, and no doubt only scratching the surface of their true potential. But they cannot do it alone. They need the support of the private sector right now to access capital, to build supply chains, as well as to reach and service customers among countless other challenges. An impressive cohort of companies has already stepped up to support some of these efforts, but much work remains. So you know the other thing about that hospital in Rwanda? It's more advanced and has better health outcomes than many of the so-called first world hospitals that you and I rely on. It's little things, like each bed looking directly out a window into nature, something we know from studies aids healing. But it was also built for 2/3 the cost and in 2/3 the time of Rwanda's other district hospitals. It also directly served the local economy. It employed 4,000 people in the design and the construction of that hospital, half of them women. And that is the big secret of this whole thing, that the private sector can gain strategic advantage by paying attention to the ingenuity, the scrappiness, and the integrity of the social sector. But there's something even greater at play still, which goes far beyond the bottom line. And that's the sense of dignity that design brings people. I've come to believe that dignity is to design what justice is to law and health is to medicine. It's about people seeing their worth reflected in the spaces they inhabit and in the products and services that they rely on to live and to thrive. Everyone deserves good design, because good design is not just a matter of taste or a question of aesthetics. It literally shapes people's ideas about who they are in the world and what they deserve. Thank you.